All right, as you remember yesterday, we're learning this speech that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave at the very end of 1991, Tafshin Nun Beit. And in it, the Rebbe is telling us that the essence of God is found in darkness. In other words, when there is a situation of light and revelation and good and holiness, which that's great, that's what we want. That's really good. So sometimes though, that will cover over, it will catch our attention, remove our attention from the essence. Sometimes. So therefore, it could be that when there are difficult times and God is not revealed, and it seems that maybe there is no such thing as God, so that's when the essence of God is revealed. The essence of God. Not any revelations of God, not the goodness of God, not the power of God, not the kindness of God, the love of God. Those are all aspects of God. But sometimes it can be that in the darkness, where you don't see any aspects of God, that's revealing the essence of God. Okay, the Rebbe is definitely not a proponent of darkness, or he's recommending suffering, something like that. That's of course ridiculous. But if it does happen, God forbid, then we have to understand that somehow or other this is even better than revealed good. Of course, we want revealed good. We want it all to be together. But nevertheless, this is the essence. And there's Rabbi Mangel, there's Rabbi Nissim Mangel in Crown Heights. Maybe will. He must be a man probably in his 80s, maybe. I haven't seen him recently, but I saw him a few years ago, and he still looked healthy, looked very good. And when he went through the Holocaust, he has a number on his arm. He was very young when he went through. He was very young when he went through the Holocaust. He was maybe, 14, 15 years old. But he said many times, he has some very interesting things he said about it. One of the things he said was, when he's asked, where was God in the Holocaust? He said, where was God? He was with me. He said that it was impossible. According to nature, no Jew could ever have survived the camps. The people that did survive are people that didn't eat anything for 3 years. Right? They ate like water and bread and some watered down soup for 3 years. They worked outside in sub-freezing weather in just their pajamas. They just had pajamas. There was disease. There was murder. And they had to work. If they didn't provide, they would kill them. Right? Said anybody that made it through the Holocaust in any way, it's a miracle. Right? It's a miracle. And he said, so God was with me. Where was God? God was with me. And he said that if you ask him, he said that more people became believers in God from the Holocaust than left God. He said, because if you didn't believe in God, right, when you came to these terrible situations that there were, where there was no food and there was no this, right, you had to believe that somehow or other, inside of all this pain and darkness and this, there was something that was infinitely good. Because if you didn't believe that, then you wouldn't be able to hold on. That these evil people that are doing all this destruction, there has to be an alternative, right? There has to be something that's so good that's indestructible. And that these Germans are trying with all of their might to destroy it. And the best they can do is to destroy the Jewish people. That's the best they can do. But they would love if they could destroy this ultimate pure good. And they can't. I'm always in touch with it. And that's what he said. I didn't go through the Holocaust, but he did. And that's what he said. That in his estimation, that more people came to be believers in, I don't know if they meant they became religious, but they became believers in God the people that went through the Holocaust, because they saw that in the darkness was the essence of God. So the Rebbe is trying to tie this down and tie this to us. Of course, now again, there's no way that the goal is darkness. Darkness is not the goal, but it's part of creation. How do we say God created the world? There should be evening and morning, one day. Erev vayboker. Darkness comes before the light. There has to be darkness first. That's the way God made the world. So when there is darkness, so you should know, a person should know when there is darkness that he has to try as much as possible not to pay attention to the darkness, but rather to the essence of God, which somehow or other is invisible, shining behind it. And the Rebbe said this is especially represented by the holidays of Yud Kislev and Chanukah, because they appear at the end of the month, and the Jewish month is determined by the moon, especially by the light of the moon. And all the Jewish holidays are in the beginning of the month or in the middle of the month, right? Either approaching the full moon or at the full moon. But the holiday of Yud Kislev and especially Chanukah are when the moon is waning, it's getting smaller, darkness. Because these two holidays are dealing with not revelations of God, but with the essence of God. And in those two times, the essence of God, that's what was the main power behind the holidays. Not God's goodness, not God's kindness, not God's, power. I want to use the same word. Not God's power, but just God. The fact that there is God. That will never leave us. And not only will it never leave us, but we can actually utilize it. That's what God wants to be revealed in the whole world. So let's go. Alpis, according to this, now we can understand. Now we can understand the reason that Rosh Hashanah of Torah Chasidus Chag HaChagim is like all the other, at the end of the month. Let me just say one more thing. I want to say, because I said it yesterday, and I really impressed myself with this. I really did. To illustrate this thing, to illustrate this. Maybe people they didn't hear yesterday, they didn't pay attention to it. But I sort of didn't pay attention to it either when I said it, and I thought about it, how amazingly beautiful it is. What can I tell? And like I said, I saw how the essence of God is found in the darkness. So this man went in front of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was a Jewish guy, a religious guy. He had a hat, he had a beard, not a long beard, had a beard, like they call it modern Orthodox. You could see this was a really, I want to call it a quality person, in my estimation. And he's telling the Rebbe that he has a son that's autistic. And his son is autistic, and he sort of wants to ask the Rebbe for a blessing, but he realizes it's a hopeless case. He says, I have a son that's autistic, and and he's in institutions. We put him in institutions, and that it's a Jewish institutions. He said religious institutions, and he can't really speak well. He doesn't really relate to people. He can't really relate to people, and so you could see that he was just has resolved himself to the situation. So the Rebbe said to him, he doesn't relate to people, but he relates to God. And he talks to God, doesn't talk to people. And you saw this man, when he heard this from the Rebbe, and it was like a novelty to him. He didn't think about that. And suddenly this is how I interpret it. He was filled with pride. Wow, my son is really special. My son is not like me and everybody else. He's close to God. He's talking to God, all the time. Wow, this is so. In other words, in the darkness comes the essence, and we can't appreciate it. We appreciate things that are from outward, that come out to us, but they come toward God. We don't appreciate that. And this child does appreciate it. And the father appreciated his son. Okay, I just wanted to say that because I was very impressed by it. I'm impressed by it right now. According to this, we can say the reason that the setting this year of Torah. Why is Torah Chasidut after the moon is full? Why, when the moon is waning, getting smaller? Amala Miyuchet is the main special thing of the Rosh Hashanah and Matan Torah of Torah Chasidus. The main thing of the giving of Chag HaChagim, which is called the holiday of holidays, is the beginning of the revelation of the Torah of the Moshiach. The reasons for the Torah, the secret of the Torah. I think this is what 49. That's what Rashi says, right? On Shir HaShirim. It says in the beginning, right in the beginning over there, in the Song of Songs, it says, King Solomon said, God will kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. What is this talking about? God's mouth is the Torah. The kissing is an inner connection, that in the future, God will reveal the secret of the reasons that are concealed and hidden from us of the Torah. Like it says, Torah chadasha mi'iti teitze. It'll be a new Torah. It'll be brand new. Brand new. Ve'ein aroch, incomparable with the revelation that was even at the giving of the Torah. Like it says, Torah Shadam Lomid, the Torah that we're learning now, Hevel he, it's just like wind compared to the Torah what the Moshiach is going to teach us. Every word will have meaning. Every commandment will be alive. One of the main things of the Moshiach regarding the giving of the Torah is a nisuin of marriage, like it says in the Midrash, Mashal Melech, it's like a king, Shakadesh Isha, that he married a woman. But Kasavlo, and he wrote to her, gave to her Matanas Moatim, a few gifts, gave her a ring or something. Gave and Shabola Kachta, since he came to actually take her into his house, Katavlo Matanat Rabot, he gave her a lot of gifts like a husband. Kach also this world is just the marriage under the wedding, like it says, like an engagement. Below Masar Lehem, Ella Halavana Belvad. God gave to the Jews only the moon. Like it says, this month will be for you. When God took them out of Egypt, when did God give this commandment of counting the months? When the Jews were still in Egypt. God said, I'm going to marry you. This is my engagement ring. But in the days of the Mashiach, and this is what the Jews held on to, and they got the Torah and everything. That was only the marriage, the party. But in the days of the Mashiach, then there's going to be the actual wedding. Here he says it's going to be like only the engagement, but in the future it's going to be the actual consummation of the wedding. Like it says, like it says, your master, he's the one that makes you. The word boel also means to have sexual connection. The consummation of the wedding. But Otosha at that time, then at that time, God will give them everything. And it was up to the time of the Mashiach, we've only been engaged to God. God gave us this wedding ring, nice ring, which is the Torah. But when, in the days of the Mashiach, that's going to be the consummation of the wedding. And the unity of the bride and the groom. Then God's going to give us everything. Like it says, then it says, those who understand will shine like the splendor of the heavens. Those people who give merit to the to the multitudes, they'll like the stars in the sky, they'll shine forever. The main completion of a Jew, a Yichud Knesset Yisrael, the unifying the Jewish people with God, they will be really one. This is going to be the days of the Mashiach. Like we said before, then everyone will see that every Jew is the son of God. It's the son of God. This is the prince. Every single Jew. Because there'll be one. Sha'az, then Yekuyim, then will be the sun, the light of the moon will be equal to the light of the sun. She Yisrael, that the Jewish people, Haim lo rak kamo lavana, they will not be just like the moon. Shemakabelas miachama, that receives from the sun. Like it says, when God took them out of Egypt and gave them the Torah, he only gave them the moon. Ela she'em kamo, they will be like the sun. Mosa le'amatakol will give them everything. Gama Chama, also the sun, Kavan Shemizkale, but Yisrael, oh, it'll give them everything, even the sun. Like it says, Shemagale, Miskale, Yisrael, Kodesh Baruch Hu Lachad. So the illuminator of the day will be illuminating in the nighttime also. The moon itself will be as bright as the sun. The Jewish people will be as bright as God. But Yishlam, we can say, this is hinted at also in how Rosh Hashanah and the Rosh Hashanah, the Matan Torah of Chassidut, that the beginning and the giving of the Torah of Chassidut, which is Yutet Kislev, this is the beginning of the revelation of the consummation of the wedding of the Moshiach. This is after the filling of the moon. Comes after, when the moon is getting smaller. Why? Shebezebrum was there. Now, what this is we're hinting at, that the shlemus of Levana. We're hinting at the completion, the wholesomeness of a full moon. La'achre, after Kabbalah's or Lachama Beshlemusa. In other words, after the moon gives off all of its light, right, external, then there's something much higher than that. Then there's the essence of the moon. Then it comes closer to the sun, and it unites with the sun. So to us, it seems that it's dark, but the fact of the matter is, it's really bright. Like that the autistic child with this, he's closer to God than I am. Wow, it's amazing. But I don't see anything. Right, but the fact the Rebbe revealed that he's closer to God. The same thing, the moon. We don't see anything, but it's closer to the source, to the sun. When it's getting closer, that represents not just the revelation of the light, but the revelation of the essence of a Pratios Yoter. Even more, this year, this Yutet Kislev, the 19th day of Kislev, which is the day when Chassidut was really born. Chassidut Chabad was really born. This is the third day. It comes out on Tuesday. Tuesday is the third day of the Jewish week. Shemit Borech Miyom Shabbat. That it got a blessing from Shabbat. This is 3 days after Shabbat. Shabbat came on Tetzai, and that'll be this coming Shabbat of Kislev. Shabbat, that in it begins Hitkarvu Talavana, the moon starts to get closer to the sun, right? The 16th day of the month, that's the Shabbat. The 16th day of the month is the day after the full moon. In other words, the moon, the light coming to us is less, but the moon is coming closer to the sun. To be like the sun, after. But al yadein, by means of this preparation of feeling v'shleimus levana and the completion, the wholeness of the moon of Erev Shabbos. This Friday, the moon will be full between the 14th and the 15th, and draw. I'm sorry, one second. Yutes Kislev is on Yom Shlishi. Yom Shlishi is already, the moon has been getting less and less for 3 days. After the third day of the week is the fourth day of the week. That's Chaf Kislev. Chav Kislev is the day that the Rebbe actually was freed totally from the prison. He was put into a house of one of his enemies by mistake. It's a long story, but anyway, Chav is the day that he got free. Yom Shlishi, the Yom Taliti, Beyarcha Talitai. This is the third day, this coming Tuesday, which will be Yutet Kislev, will be the third day of the third month. Kislev is the third month of the winter months, right? And the number 3, Huchbal Bokitov. The number 3, it says that God, when He created the world, so on the third day He said that it was good. It was good. He said it twice. Good. Tov l'shamayim. It's good to the heavens and good for the creations. Shehu, this is the idea of the unification of the upper worlds with the lower worlds. Number 3, heavens are the upper worlds. Briot are the physical worlds, the creations. Mashpia, the giver, namely God, Umakabel, and the receiver, the creator and the creations. Chama, the sun, and the moon. All these are this relationship of a giver and a receiver. And that's why we said so many times why God is always referred to as masculine, because he's the giver. And the Jewish people are feminine, they're the receivers. The world is. Well, that they become one unit, one thing. Because the fact is that really there's nothing outside of God. So it's, this novelty, it's only a novelty because in regard to the creation of the world, which that's the novelty that God created the world for. That the world and godliness become one. Well, Yom Revi, and the day that comes after the third day, Yom Kislev, that was when there was created the two lights, too big, the fourth day of creation. On the third day of creation, look back in the beginning of the creation of the world. On the third day, it says, okay, first day God created the light. The second day God created a division. On the third day, it says that God created the Rakia. Everything sort of came together. And God said 2 times, it was good, twice. The fourth day of creation, God created the 2 lights, the 2 big lights, the moon and the sun. They were both called big. That the moon, Eino Mekabelet, it will not receive from the sun anymore. That's the way it was when it was created. But both of them will be equal. It said that the why God made them equal and then made one of them less. It said, okay, that's not our point now. But nevertheless, God created the sun and the moon to be equal. And then he said, okay, moon, you go and make yourself less. You become less. But in the future, it's going to be like it was before. Just like in the future, it's going to be like when Adam was created. He wasn't supposed to die. And he brought death into the world. It was supposed to be pure, good, godliness, life revealed in the world. And Adam, because he did that, so the world started covering over this goodness. It's not that the goodness went away. It's just covered. The same thing with the moon. The light didn't go away, but it just became covered. The moon was not self-sufficient. There'll be one crown for both of them. The moon and the sun will receive from the same place. That was on the 4th day. What happened on the 5th day? On the 5th day, Yom HaBrachas L'Kol HaChai, to all the living things. On the 6th day, it says Ki Tov, Ki Tov. It says Tov and Tov Me'od. On the 6th day, God created the animals, but he also created man. And that's when it says that everything was very, very good. Twice. The Rebbe even points out that it could be that he said the world was very good. When God created the world, this was after man sinned. After he sinned with the tree, God still said the world is very good. So anyone tells you that the world is an evil place, you can say, okay, but that's a very superficial way of looking at things. The world, in fact, is a very beautiful, wonderful, blessed place, but it's concealed. It's hidden. And we have to reveal it. We can attach this to what it says in this week's Torah portion of Erev Shabbos and Yom Shabbos, Parshas Vayishlach. It says this is the parsha of the Yom Shlishi and Yom Revi. And also what's going to be next week is going to be Parshas Vayeshev that we're going to read in Shabbos and Mincha. The big novelty of the service of Yaakov and Vayishlach, that Yaakov sent these messengers to Esav and Vayeshev in regarding to, and also what happened in Parshat Vayeshev, that he meets up with Yaakov, what happens to Yosef in Vayeshev. This is, if you compare these 2 Torah portions, what Yaakov did in these 2, to the 2 previous ones, to the Parshas Vayetze, Yaakov, and told it to the 2 previous ones. Elder told it Yitzchak, Yaakov as Esav. Okay, so all 4 of these speak about Yaakov. Some more, some less. And so from the beginning, from Toldot, when Yaakov is born, right, together with Esav, and that's Toldot. And after that comes, Vayetze, that Yaakov goes out and he meets, right? And then, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, here we go. This week's Torah portion Vayishlach, and next week's Torah portion is Vayeshev. If you compare them to the two previous weeks, Vayetze and Toldot. Vayetze and Toldot, all of them four deal with Yaakov. But the Parshas Vayishlach and Yeshev, this week's Torah portion and next week's, they are the finishing of Yaakov, how Yaakov was purifying the world. Namely, how he was with Lavan and how he was with Esav. So much that Yaakov was already prepared for the days of the Moshiach. That's this week's Torah portion. That's why it says Yaakov sent messages, like we just finished learning in Torah Or, that Yaakov sent these messengers to Esav to let him know that I finished everything. I'm ready for the future redemption. I hope you can bring your lights to me. That's this word. And Esav said, I'm sorry, I'll have to wait until I'm sorry. Esav said, come, let's walk together. And Yaakov said, I'm sorry, I realized that the time is not right. I'll meet you in Seir, which is going to be like another, 3,000 years from now, 3,000 something, almost. Kamo b'yamei Moshiach, like in the days of the Moshiach, like it says in the Moshiach. But this is in this week's Torah, Haftorah. But all of Moshiim, the saved ones, the Jews, will come from Mount Zion, and they'll judge the Mount of Esav. And the Esav he comes from Seir. V'Hashem, and God will have the kingship. So that's talking about the days of the Moshiach. So these two Torah portions are talking about how Yaakov is working. Basically. Now what we're learning about is Yeshev Yaakov, Bikesh Yaakov wants to sit quietly. But Yeshev B'Shalva, Bepoil, he wants to, Bepoil, Ajikafetz Alav Rogzok Shel Yosef. He wanted to be peaceful. So we see Toldot, Parshas Toldot, Vayetze are talking about his battles. This week's Torah portion and the next week's Torah portion are talking about his success, preparing, the Moshiach is prepared for. Again, he wants to sit in peace in the land of Mitzrayim. Ad the Zaman Kiyum Yud, it says V'shalva emitit mot Moshiach. So the four Torah portions talk about Yaakov. The first two, last week and the one before, are talking about Yaakov, his struggles to prepare for the Moshiach. This week's Torah portion and next is talking about his successes, doing everything he can, preparing. The world is prepared now for the Moshiach. Then will be, like it says by the Alter Rebbe, Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, like explained the second Rebbe of Chabad, immediately the true peace will be in the days of the Moshiach. Why will there be peace? Because there won't be any troubles for no reason. But it'll be in a higher way. The problems will be that we'll have to purify ourselves. And that won't be a problem, to go higher and higher in ourselves. But there won't be any external, unnecessary, negative forces against us that we'll have to work against.
Physically as well.
No
health problems.
Right. Of course, there won't be diseases. There won't be. The difference between Yaakov, how he was doing the birurim in the last 2 weeks, and the situation of Yaakov, how he is already purifying the world in this week and next week, this is something like the difference between the moon as it receives from the sun and how it is when both of them are equal. Yaakov is like the moon. He is what's called the small light. Yaakov is called Katan. He's the small sun. Yaakov ki katanu. Therefore, a Katan, therefore, the small one, the Jewish people who are small, they count according to the moon, which the moon is small. So according to what's known, that the miyut halavana, the fact that the waning of the moon, like God said, go and make yourself smaller, and the moon became small, is why is the moon became smaller? This is a continuation of the breaking of the vessels of Toh that we learned about in the Maimer. That all these sparks of holiness came down. Therefore, there was a tremendous descent in Malchut, in God's what's called kingship, and that's represented by the moon. And the moon, therefore, came tumbling down, and now it's like a poor person. It's poor. It has to receive. So the moon has to come down into these lower worlds in order to do its work down here, to refine this tohu that we said before. So it comes out that the moon has to receive from the sun in order to refine the world. In other words, the moon came down and became small because of this thing called the breaking of the vessels. The breaking of the vessels was the potential of sin. And when Adam actually did sin, it brought it even further down. So the moon coming down is a result of God making this potential of sin in the world. We learned about that just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, just a couple of days ago. But the battle between Yaakov and Esav, that how could there be evil in the world? Evil should be here, but in a potential, not actual. And that's why the moon came down, because there's the potential to do bad. The moon. Originally, the moon was like the sun. There was only good. But when God decided to break the vessels, so the moon came down. So the moon now has to be in the world, so to speak, is shining up the darkness, whatever it can, in order to refine the world. But in order to do that, it has to have light from the sun. In order to do it, it has to reflect light from the sun. When the moon, it's like a spy, goes, he has to have constant, how do you say, the encouragement from his country to hold on to his patriotism and his faithfulness to his country. He has to remember all the time, I am an Israeli, no matter what. It's the same thing. The moon has come down here. It's like a spy in the world, and it has to receive constant inspiration from the sun. But when it does its job, when the moon does its job, when the Jewish people do their job in the world, that they're like the moon, then the moon will not have to receive anymore. Then the light of the moon will be the light of the sun. There'll be two big illuminaries, as will continue, God willing, more tomorrow. Now let's do the Yom Yom. Yom Yom. My father said, these are sayings of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe that were gathered together by the Rebbe and put in this form, Yom Yom. Okay, my father said, Chassidut changes what exists and uncovers the essence which is underneath the surface. The essence character of a Jew is beyond estimation and assessment. There's no way that you could possibly describe what it is, because a Jew is a part of God's essence. And whoever takes part of God's essence is as though he holds on to everything. Just as the essence is unlimited, so the part is unlimited. So every Jew is essentially God. Just like the revelation of God that was in the Holy of Holies. You can't describe what it was, and it can't be measured. We've talked about this before, but it says that the ark that was in the Holy of Holies had very, very exact measurements. If it didn't have these exact measurements, then it was disqualified. It has to be 2.5 amos long, and etc. But nevertheless, you put it in the room was 20 amos wide. And when they measured from one end of the ark to the wall, it was 10 amos. And when they measured from the other end of the ark to the opposite wall, it was 10 amos. In other words, the ark did not take up any place. It comes out that from one end to the other was 20 amos. And if you subtract the place where the ark took up, it was 20 amos. The ark didn't take up any place. How can that be? The ark had to be a certain measurement. If you measured the ark, you'd measure it, and you'd see that there was measurements. It had to be. If it wasn't, how could it be? So the answer is there's no explanation. You can't explain it. It's unlimited. This is similar to tzitzis, like tzitzis are on the corner. Namely, the tzitzis, the strands, I'll just look, see, you got these strands over here. Here's the garment, and you have the strands. The strands come from the garment. See, here we go. See, the strands come from the garment. So it says the strand should be made of the same thing as the garment, or at least the corner of the garment. They have to be made the same material as the corner. The material, that's the surrounding level of God. And this is the articulations of God's power, how they come into the world. It represents. It has to be the same thing. In other words, the world is made of the same miraculous, infinite stuff, or what do you want to call it, that God is made of. It's only because God created the soul to be created being, and Chassidut reveals the essence character of the soul. So every Jew is a, a clone of the Creator. Exactly. And we are the chosen people to tell everyone in the world that God is creating them and that everyone is made in God's image. That is the essence of what a Jew is. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, God willing. Oh, listen. 3:00. I won't be here today. I got confused. I thought it was yesterday. I have to go today to the army. They're making this thing. I speak and I play guitar and everything like that. Usually I can't take a video.
Hope you could record it.
A little bit, but these are not. These are sort of like secret bases. They're not supposed to advertise. It's not like super secret, even though the person that takes me there takes me sometimes to these top secret places that you can't this. But they don't like it if you film it.
Last time you filmed it, they don't want to do it again.
It was sort of smuggled out, and anyway, right, I did.
Right.
But I'll try to do it today. We'll see. Maybe it'll work. Anyway, but that's what I'm going to be doing. So there will not be a class at 3:00. A lot of people don't come to that class anyway, but they do. A lot of people do watch it afterwards on.
Absolutely, yes.
So there will not be at 3:00. There won't be a class, but I will finish the sicha that I started off yesterday, and I'll see if I can put up the Torah portion, the Chumash portion from last year. I'll try to put that up. So that won't be it. But tomorrow morning, 8:15, we will be learning as regular. God bless you all. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, thank you for turning in.
Want to ask you something after.
Okay, 1 minute. Good.